The ultimate dream for any up-and-coming fighter is to make it to the pros. Generally, it's the only way to go from hometown brawler to internationally recognized baller. But what if going pro wasn't the only path to fame and recognition? While incredibly rare, it has happened before, and there is arguably no story more infamous or remarkable than the story of Kimbo Slice. While Kimbo did end up trying his hand at professional MMA, his path to get there was truly one of a kind. He got his start in the mysterious, legally questionable world of street fighting. It was raw, it was gritty, and Kimbo, to the shock of millions of worldwide viewers, was as intimidating a force as any the world had laid eyes on. This is the incredible true story of the street fighter who went viral and what happened when he decided to compete professionally. Background: the monolithic cultural figure who would come to be known as Kimbo Slice was born in the right generation for viral internet stardom, but it would be hard to argue he was born in the right place. Kevin Ferguson was born in the Bahamas on February 8, 1974. Seeking better economic and educational opportunities, Kevin's family relocated to Miami, Florida when he was still in elementary school. When Kevin was 13, he had his first encounter with physical combat, and for the first time, he showed signs that he had a fighter's DNA. As he would later describe it, he found out he was good at beating people up. A friend of Kevin's was getting harassed on the street. Soon, Kevin saw hands being put on his friend, so he instinctively ran over and began exchanging blows with the attacker. He says he could see the punches coming, almost telepathically. With surprising ease, 13-year-old Kevin was able to land a left hook on the attacker, and, in Kevin's own words, the attacker was done after that. It was his first ever one-punch knockout, but it would be far from his last. Kevin's high school athletics department recognized that he had the DNA of a sports star, but they saw him as a natural-born football player. Kevin played middle linebacker at Miami Palmetto High School. Thanks to his over 6-foot Hulk-like build, Kevin was every bit the star his coaches had envisioned. In fact, he was ranked within the top 10 middle linebackers in the country. The NFL seemed far from a long shot. However, just a few months after graduating, Florida was struck by Hurricane Andrew. Kevin's home was destroyed. He hid under a mattress while the walls and ceiling crumbled all around him. 18-year-old Kevin was forced to spend a month living out of his car, a green 1987 Nissan Pathfinder with 4 mismatched tires and broken windows that leaked rain into the interior. To earn money, he washed cars. He also bathed in pools and the ocean, and he had to use the bathroom wherever he could get away with it. He would always maintain, even decades later, that this was the most scared he's ever been in his life. He also admits that he was understandably tempted to use violence to keep from starving. After all, he was bigger and stronger than 99% of people, and he was desperate. The path to street fighting. But to his credit, the young man never did. Instead, he prayed every night for guidance and slowly but surely crawled his way back out of homelessness. He attended the University of Miami on an athletic scholarship, but after a year and a half, Kevin and his family were still desperate for money, so he left college and tried out for the Miami Dolphins. This was Kevin's golden opportunity. If he could secure a spot on the roster of an NFL team, both he and his family would see financial security the likes of which they had never dreamed, let alone known. He did manage to join the preseason squad, but in cruel irony, the fact that he'd left college early ultimately prevented Kevin from being able to join the team. Kevin was devastated, but he couldn't afford to mope around. He got a job working as a bouncer at a strip club in Miami. Kevin, now in his early 20s, was perfect for the job, but it didn't pay nearly enough to support his family. That's why when he got a job offer from an old high school friend, he was ready to pounce on the opportunity. His friend, Mike Ember, said Kevin could work as a limousine driver for his media company, Reality Kings. Reality Kings is a porn company. Kevin needed the money, and he readily accepted the job. As luck would have it, he would end up having a lifelong connection to the company. First street fight. In 2003, a video appeared on a porn website that, suffice to say, stood out from other videos. It was a video of Kevin Ferguson and another man in a Florida backyard. Both men were shirtless, and several other people were standing around the yard, watching intently. Moments after the camera started rolling, the pair began aggressively boxing each other, barehanded. At one point, Kevin, clearly the stronger of the two, lowered his fists and taunted his opponent while allowing him to strike, asking, "Is that all you got?" Pretty quickly, Kevin's opponent surrendered, but not before Kevin landed a devastating blow to his right eye. At the end of the video, viewers get a sickening glimpse of the result of that blow, and when the video first started circulating online, a new nickname for Kevin was quickly born. Kimbo Slice, the Bahamian beast who can slice your eye with a single punch, suddenly became an internet sensation. Street fighting star. Kevin, now crowned Kimbo, won $3,000 for winning the fight. Big money for him at the time. However, the much greater benefit he eventually gained was that it launched an extraordinary career in the world of mutual combat street fighting. On the Wild West internet of the 2000s, it was a genre primed to go viral, and Kimbo was destined to be its preeminent star. Mutual combat is only legal in 2 US states. Neither one of them is Florida. Most of the videos that came out of Kimbo fighting were posted on adult websites, which might seem odd, but makes sense considering that if they had been posted on more mainstream platforms, they might have been pulled down. Not only was Kimbo the strongest and most intimidating figure in the street fighting world, he also proved one of the most charismatic. He exuded high confidence, often taunting his opponents and bragging about being unstoppable. And he was unstoppable. His upper body strength and cement-like fists drew early comparisons to none other than Mike Tyson. As he had in his very first schoolyard fight, Kimbo mastered the art of the one-punch knockout. His ability to sit opponents down with a single strike made his fights explosive and exhilarating to watch. Hundreds of millions watched Kimbo's fights online, yet despite him becoming an overnight celebrity and one of the first stars of social media, mainstream media outlets refused to cover him. He was seen by mainstream media as a thug, an outlaw, a bad influence. But soon, they would have no choice but to give him their attention. Transition to MMA. In his entire street fighting career spanning several years, Kimbo is only known to have lost one single fight, a brawl with Boston police officer Sean Gannon. Gannon had trained in mixed martial arts, and whether coincidence or not, the following year, Kimbo decided to pivot toward MMA himself. Kimbo was only interested in improving his street fighting skills, but as he learned more about the art, his interest in professional MMA began to grow. It would seem almost improbable for a man like Kimbo, who had crawled his way out of homelessness, been dropped from the NFL, and made a living fighting with his bare hands in backyards. But in 2006, the improbable became a reality. Kimbo Slice, who had acquired the title of scariest man on the internet, found the rising sport of MMA waiting for him with open doors. His brand of raw authenticity, having come from a rough background and fighting with real heart and passion, made him a prime candidate for the pro MMA world of the mid to late 2000s. In 2007, Kimbo entered the Cage Fury Fighting Championships in Atlantic City, New Jersey. His opponent was Ray Mercer, an Olympic gold medalist boxer. To prepare for the fight, Kimbo trained in California with one of the greatest heavy hitters in MMA history, Bas Rutten. Kimbo's presence in the ring caused a huge spike in viewership for the event, which sold a then record 20,000 pay-per-view buys. Using a guillotine chokehold, Kimbo was able to defeat the former gold medalist in 72 seconds. Later that year, Kimbo signed with Pro Elite and was subsequently scheduled to compete in the league. There, he continued to win and win fast. Kimbo gained a notorious reputation for incredibly fast knockouts. One fight at Elite XC Renegade lasted just 19 seconds before Kimbo struck his opponent to the canvas. The struggles of fame. As his stature continued to grow, so did his controversiality. After a highly contested fight in 2008 where Kimbo was declared the winner after a referee stoppage, multiple figures in the MMA world criticized Kimbo. Despite stepping into the professional realm, Kimbo struggled to shake the perception that he was a deplorable street fighter who didn't belong there. Pundits accused him of degrading the sport. One problem was that Kimbo was marketed extremely heavily. Executives sought to capitalize on his internet stardom and grow the sport. Serious investment was put behind Kimbo's image as the world's greatest fighter, the world's scariest brawler, the strongest, the best. But this was as much hype and branding as it was based on anything he'd actually achieved. Kimbo went on to compete in the UFC, and again his hype seemed almost impossible to live up to. He appeared on the reality TV series Ultimate Fighter and was the first pick by his coach. His presence on the show helped make it the highest rated MMA show ever. He went on to compete in the regular UFC, but ended up losing a pay-per-view fight against Matt Mitrione, which ultimately cost him his UFC contract. Kimbo tried to return to MMA, but his dismissal from UFC had damaged his reputation, and he found he was unable to do so. Kimbo decided to pivot again, veering instead into the world of pro boxing. All the while, he was navigating a level of celebrity that few professional fighters ever have to deal with. He even went on Jimmy Kimmel, where he intrigued both the host and the audience with stories from the ring and from his remarkable past. Kimbo was seen by the general public as the most unstoppable fighter on the planet, but in reality, his fighting career was on a downward slide. The results of his foray into boxing were mixed. As expected, Kimbo managed some brutal and impressive knockouts, including one in just 10 seconds, which helped to revamp his reputation as a Tyson-esque heavyweight. Unlike Tyson, however, his boxing career was short-lived. Even though he had a 7-0 record, Kimbo retired from boxing in 2013. In the following years, he mostly seemed to ride the coattails of his extraordinary fame, appearing in various TV shows and movies as a distinctive and recognizable face. However, even though Kimbo Slice had at one time almost certainly been the most famous fighter in the world by the mid-2010 or so, it was somewhat unclear what to make of his legacy. Legacy. This uncertainty became all the more poignant and tragic when on June 5th, 2016, Kimbo died of congestive heart failure at a hospital in Margate, Florida. He was just 42 years old and had been scheduled to compete in his first MMA fight in years in London just a month later. Kimbo's death was a shock that traveled all across the MMA world and indeed the internet as a whole. He left us with a story that is as incredible as it is enigmatic. That first video, the one that turned Kevin Ferguson into Kimbo Slice, came out in 2003, 2 years before the creation of YouTube. Going viral was still a foreign concept to most people, and this probably included Kimbo himself, who was just trying to make money to support himself and his family. He was catapulted into a world of fame and attention that he never expected, and in a time when professional MMA was still fighting to achieve mainstream recognition, his internet notoriety made him a priceless asset for the marketing and branding of the sport. It's not clear that Kimbo ever really wanted any of this. He just followed what he saw as his best opportunity to earn a living. He was propped up as the most invincible fighter on earth, but while he was certainly a talented fighter who saw some real success in the ring, he was far from invincible. Yet, in spite of the controversy and his outsized celebrity status, Kimbo Slice did manage to help popularize combat sports in a way few fighters ever have. He also inspired countless young people in a uniquely positive way, showing that, from the humblest of circumstances, you can channel your anger and frustrations into a respected and potentially lucrative pro sport that can transform your life. One person who is clearly inspired by Kimbo is his son, Kevin Ferguson Jr., who has followed in his father's footsteps and entered the world of MMA that Kimbo helped expand. Kimbo Slice was explosive, shocking, and divisive, but whatever you think of him, looking at his story from street fighter to pro, you can't deny the man was entertaining, impactful, and truly one of a kind. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. See you next time.